Hi, everybody. So, Venus went into retrograde at the end of July. I think it was the 25th, and now it is August 31st. And I want to tell you that I've had some very interesting readings, and I think that Venus being in retrograde really had an effect on what people were going through and the types of readings I was getting. And I want to tell you about a little bit about the readings and some of the decks I used, because I use decks that are generally very private to me and that I don't normally use. So I had, a woman, I guess about maybe in her late 50s or so, and she, now having been divorced for a while, she's really coming to a point in her life where she wants to regain her confidence in her own sexuality. A lot of these readings I'm going to tell you about are really about that, about people wanting to get back in touch or to understand or to heal their own sensuality and their sexuality. So they weren't typical relationship readings. These were really deep type of readings. And I think as a healer, I've really done work with people in that respect through with homeopathy and other work that I do. So, but to have it with tarot readings was really interesting and different on the depths of that they were going. So, I was working with some decks, and I really decided, because, this one particular woman did seem very vulnerable, and she wanted to understand, what happened from when she was, very confident with her sexuality in her 20s and 30s to now, these years later, and having had difficult relationships and having, felt a little betrayed in different relationships throughout the years, and all these things, plus some health issues, really eroded her own fire. So what I decided to do is to pull out some private decks. Now, these are all adult decks. I will only show a few cards from each of the decks, but my point is to show that, these decks that are often panned or misunderstood, I find that they really can be very healing. The first one I want to talk about is the most gentle of all of them. And this was an independently published deck, which I had gotten a few years back. And here is the box. It is called Le Tarot des Femmes Erotiques. So I got it at, I think the website is, hold on, I think it's vintageerotictarot.com. But I do think Amazon is now carrying it if you're interested. So what it is, these are all erotic photos from a century ago. And they're very lovely. They're all in sepia tone, but it's all women, and they're all nude, So I'm just going to show a few. But here is the back, and this will be the Magician card. Now, the reason I used this deck for this woman is because there's something about these cards. It's the expression of the women, the sepia tone, everything, the way it's been put together, that is very gentle, and it helped her look at herself through kinder, softer eyes. It was an emotional reading and a very healing reading. Actually, we read more than once with this deck because she felt so moved by it. So yeah, a lot of the cards have full nudity, but it's very tasteful. I find them very beautiful, and these unusual types of decks, you need to look a little deeper, at the images, and to really look at the expressions and the body language that's in these type of adult decks. Also, I just want to say that at the bottom of the card, if you might have noticed already, there is a key phrase there. This is the High Priestess, and it is called the Witch. Okay, just to give you an idea, this is the Five of Cups, and at the bottom it says disappointment in love. But there's just something about the deck that is very, very kind of loving and helps you bare your soul a little bit. So I'll just show you a few more. And for anyone that really is put off by the nudity or the sexual element, I'll just tell you now that that's really what this video will be focusing on. So you know, this is not meant to offend, but to help to bring power into healing. That is, you know, truth and beauty are really what I try to bring to the table when I'm talking about tarot or really anything. And healing. So I'll just show you a few more. Here is, what is this one? The Six of Swords, and it says retreat from travail. This is so beautiful, this one here. What is this? The Swords, Ten of Swords, End of Delusion. So in case you didn't really see the suit is up here, and you have to sometimes really look or count. That would be swords, wands, or cups, or pentacles. They'll just be lined up above. And here is the Two of Wands. Two of Swords. The wands and swords are a little hard to tell apart. You have to look carefully. Okay, so you get the idea, and I really think this is a wonderful deck. Even though up until now I've only used it personally, I can see that there is use for it in a reading with someone. Now the next one, I never thought I would read with for somebody with this deck. It really does get panned if you look at the reviews at Eclectic Tarot. They do not like this deck. I think it's kind of beautiful. It is called the Decameron Tarot. It is a Lo Scarabeo deck. And there's the box. And this deck is very sexual. Almost all of the cards, you know, you'll see some type of sex being performed. There is, you know, genitalia of both sexes. I find a lot of the cards to be really lovely and beautiful. Now, I used this deck recently during the Venus retrograde to read for a man that was having ongoing issues in his relationship, which are in a sexual way that really affects him, his soul. It affects him at a very deep level. And I want to show you one of the cards, which happens to be one of my favorite cards in the deck. But this card came up for him, and it had such a meaning to him. It moved him so much that even a week after the reading, he called me and still had this image in his mind. And it is the Ace of Wands. There's something very beautiful and very tender about it. It really almost brought him to tears. And I'll just show you a few more. I'm going to show you the ones that are a little less raunchy. I do want to say that there are different attitudes in the cards. So some are very loving, some are very just directly sexual, and some are hesitant or fearful. And here is an example of that. So there is, you know, something to be read in the pictures of the cards. It's, you know, there are differences. However, one of the problems that people have with this deck is that it doesn't match with the traditional meanings. So you're going to have to, with all these adult decks, you're going to really have to think. You know, I think it is good if you use them on your own for a while to get to know them, to get to know the personalities, because each one is very different. And to get to understand why they are putting these pictures with the cups. Like, this does not seem so much like an Eight of Cups, but you know, you're going to have to really look at what's being asked by the querent, what's going on, what are the other pictures, other cards saying around it. So it takes a lot of work to use these decks. I'll just show you a few more. I'm being very selective of the cards I show you from this deck here. Here's the Devil. And what is this one? The Knave of Pentacles. But some of the cards, as I said, are actually very loving and tender. It's a real mix of this deck. So this, out of the ones I have, would be the most, what would you say, sexual. I don't really want to say vulgar, but I'm sure some people would say that. And that was the Decameron. The next deck I want to talk about is, oh, here it is the Manara, which I really love the Manara. This is also Lo Scarabeo, because who else would do these decks, right? They're all printed and made in Italy. And the Manara. Now, what's really cool about Manara is, if you're familiar with Heavy Metal Magazine, which really was, you know, from years ago. I have a friend that has some old issues, and I've seen them, and one of the issues has some work by Manara. He's an Italian artist. So as per usual, Lo Scarabeo, when they focus on an artist, they will get the paintings or imagery from pre-existing work and try to make them fit. Now that's always a little difficult, but you know, it's still a process of learning. And here is the back. This deck is a lot more playful than the Decameron deck, because it's taken from, you know, this artist's work. And he was mostly an illustrator, or sort of adult type graphic novels and things like that. So it really spans a greater, a broader spectrum than just the sexual cards. And I want to show you one of my favorite cards in this deck, and it is the King of Air, which would be King of Swords. It's one of my favorite King of Swords ever. And there you'll see him. If you look at if you can see the expression of joy, pure joy on his face as he's awaiting life to come out of the egg here. The egg is cracking open. There's something so beautiful to me about that card. I really like Manara's style. And here, you know, here are some that are a little more playful. And then later, it's the same couple, but it's a different suit. So, as with the Decameron, some of these cards are very blatant, and, you know, it's a mix, this one. Here's the High Priestess, which I really happen to like a lot. You'll see the reflection of the mirror on her, bringing in the idea of the moon energy. So, you know, some of our traditional meaning is still intact there. The Empress is just outstanding. I love it. I just love it. Just being adored by a man there. So lovely. Here's the moon. And what is this? The Six of Earth, which is very beautiful. So I'm just giving you an idea of the style and the differences. But again, this deck can get, you know, it has a lot of nudity. I'm just not showing it as much. I love the Manara deck. You know what? I really like all of these decks very much. Now, the last one that I have, which I have never really read with anyone else before, it's very sweet. It is called the Tarot of Sexual Magic, Lo Scarabeo. Here is the back. This one is a little more romantic, I would say, or a little more sweet than the Decameron, and less humorous than the Manara. I'll give you, you know, I like the Chariot card. But it's very, you know, as the name implies, it is very sexual. He's just gently stroking her. You'll see the Chariot in the back, waking her up. It's something very, that's lovely to me. What is this one? The Three of Pentacles. So I think this would be a nice couples type of deck. Ace of Chalices. But there are various situations in the deck. It's not all the loving couple. There are different situations, but almost every card has some type of romance going on. And once again, it might really throw you off if you're used to reading in a traditional way. You have to, like I said, take everything going on into account. Really get to know the deck. If you're having trouble, in fact, someone asked me recently about they're having a little trouble with a deck because it's so unusual to the regular deck. Sometimes if you get the unusual deck and you get a standard deck, a Rider-Waite, you do 3 cards every day from the one and 3 cards from the other, it might help you get to understand how the unusual deck is speaking with you. Just go side by side with the decks. I like this Two of Wands. I mean, I have to admit that, you know, I am a person that loves love. I love romance. It's probably why I have all of these sexy decks, right? Nobody needs all of them, but I have to say that they really can be useful and they can be healing. Now, I did want to say that I didn't include Royo's dark deck with these because even though it has a sensuality to it, it really doesn't have the same feel as the ones I'm showing you now. It's an excellent deck. It's an excellent, excellent reading deck, and I have never once had trouble understanding what the Royo deck is telling me. But the energy is, it's a little more of a Beauty and the Beast type energy, so it wasn't going to be appropriate for the type of readings and the people that were coming to me recently. Again, I really just used this for myself, and you know, it doesn't have, to me, that same type of sexual healing energy that the others do. It would have a different type of energy. I mean, the women are very beautiful, you know, but I want to show you what I mean where I mean, actually, this is a beautiful card. Very nice and sort of sexy, but not really like the Decameron or the Manara. But this is what I mean. There are a lot of cards like this where it has that Beauty and the Beast imagery. There are not a lot of men. The men are often portrayed in a, you know, bestial type of way. But it is a fabulous deck. And I love every single one of these. I'm going to just show you every one again. If you care, you can see I'm really passionate about this because it's been a subject that, you know, when you help someone heal these long-standing sexual issues, you really help them with their confidence and how they see themselves and how they can work through the world. If you have, you know, if you do have questions about the different personalities and if I haven't covered it well, you know, feel free to ask. And thanks for your time, everyone. Oh, by the way, Venus will be going direct September 9th, and it will be in Virgo, and I am very excited about that. Much love. Bye.